Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Alexandra Alvarado. I'm the Director of Marketing and Education here at the American Apartment Owners Association. And I am so thrilled to have with us RemoteLock again. We had their team come with us last month and talk to us a little bit. Now we're going to really get into the details. You all had so many questions about remote access that we decided to bring two experts on it. Barclay and Eric are with us from RemoteLock. And Eric here is the Chief Revenue Officer. I'm going to tell you a little bit about both of them. Eric, before joining RemoteLock, his career included leadership roles in a variety of tech-based industries for Fortune 50 companies, as well as early stage organizations. He's passionate about developing teams and accelerating revenue through strategic relationships. He's a level 4 ice hockey coach and enjoys fly fishing, skiing, climbing, 14ers, and spending time with his wife and 3 children. Thank you for coming, Eric. And we also have Barclay. Barclay is the Executive Vice President of Business Development at RemoteLock. And prior to being at RemoteLock, Barclay was a founding member and Chief Operating Officer of Conversant, and also led business development and operations for companies including Rivet Software and Service Select. So both of them have been with RemoteLock for a bit, and they're going to go over quite a lot over, how you can incorporate smart access control. If you thought about it at all, it's definitely something where most landlords are moving to. So if you haven't looked into it yet, this is a perfect presentation for you. And if you have, you may also still learn something new. So just a quick overview, we're going to have the presentation, then we're going to have questions. This whole thing is being recorded. So please don't panic if you miss anything. I can send it to you tomorrow, and I will also send you the slides and Barclay and Eric's info, as well as how to connect with RemoteLock if you are interested. So with that being said, Eric and Barclay, thank you so much for coming on and talking to our audience. We are really excited to have you with us.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alexandra. Well, let me give you a quick overview on RemoteLock. We're the leading provider of universal access control software for smart lock management and access control. But much more importantly, we're a collection of very passionate software and hardware experts that really really like to geek out on solving access control problems, whether they're very simple or very complex. We like to find ways to solve things that are taking up your time. You'll find that this is going to be a theme of what we're talking about today, but we like to find ways to give time back to our clients, time that you're not spending on access control things like rekeying or lost keys or anything else, lockouts for that, as an example. We are a highly flexible, non-proprietary platform that's used by clients in over 65 countries. We do over 100 million opens per year for more than 40 million access users. We started off in vacation rental, where the concept of creating a credential and then expiring that credential at very specific times was central to the value proposition. That very quickly exposed us the opportunity that there are many other verticals or markets that we can go into. So we're now heavy in multifamily, hospitality, and commercial. The way to think about us, and as you think about access control solutions at large, we're very much the open platform. We, as you can see from the graphic on the bottom, any door, any credential, any lock brand, any software. Manufacturers tend to use software that is specific to their hardware. Other bespoke software providers tend to focus on a few pieces of hardware. We're open. So whether it's all Yale, all Schlage, all another manufacturer, or a mix of all of them, we're ideally positioned to handle those kinds of environments for you. Talk a little bit about the benefits of electronic access control for multifamily specifically, but I'm sure as we go through just a couple of these in each category, you'll see that it would apply to almost any market or vertical that we were talking about. So operational efficiencies to start with. I mentioned lockouts or rekeying. When we're dealing with access control versus a more traditional solution that involves perhaps brass keys, electronic access control lets you handle that remotely in many cases, with a high degree of confidence and trackability about who was let in at what time. saves you time, saves you your energy, allows you to focus on other opportunities. Self-guided tours, another great operational efficiency example. Risk mitigation, and look at it when we get down to it as property managers or property owners, we're always thinking about risk and how do we mitigate that. Couple great things to point out here: event history, protection from key copying, and role-based access. And I know Barclay is going to spend a little bit more time talking about role-based access a little bit later, but central to our platform here as well is making sure that as a role is established for somebody in the platform, the permissions or restrictions, depending on which end of the spectrum you're looking at it, are appropriate and controllable and trackable, so that at the end of the day, you sleep well at night. You know that what's going on your property is supposed to be going on your property. And finally, from a resident experience perspective, whether it's a resident app or remote door openings, or even more and increasingly so, opportunities to really facilitate the amenities that many of us are looking for: dog walkers, package delivery. All of these are made much, much simpler through electronic access control. So I think that the key takeaway from this slide in particular is we like to think about the lock as a key IoT device, really the nexus or the lens through which you view all security, safety, and behaviors of the people interacting with the property, so that you can rest more comfortably at night, be more efficient in how you're managing your business, and know what's going on and know that it's supposed to be going on, or in the rare cases something's not supposed to be happening, you're also aware of that as quickly as possible. I'm going to pause here, actually, and Alexandra's got a polling question that we'd like to put up for you.
Yes, here's the polling question. What are the pain points you have in managing access via a physical key? And I believe you can answer with more than one answer if you feel like maybe more than one of these applies to your situation. I'm going to keep this up for about 60 seconds. So we'll just wait for you to come in. I see several answers coming in already. I would think cost of rekeying doors might be the most expensive one here on the list. So, and one that you probably have to do pretty often. All right, so we're at the minute mark. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. Here you go.
Oh, pretty even spread here as well. And these are all pain points that we deal with on a day in and day out basis, as I mentioned earlier. And some of them are fairly complex, and most of them are fairly straightforward, actually. But all of these are things that we can help very directly with and do, as I mentioned, on a day in, day out basis for all of our clients today. Thanks, Alexandra. All right. I want to thank my marketing department. They're on the call, but I'm going to thank them just because this slide actually really helps to make a very simple or very good point around a simple complex here, and that is that different users need different levels of access, and often doors require different credentials. And that seems obvious, I think, for anyone who's managed a property, although it's not obvious. It's not always obvious when you're trying to manage an access control solution. Our platform, however, is uniquely and ground up designed to make this a reality, make this very simple for you. So some examples in moving through the graphic: main entrances and common doors require one kind of hardware and perhaps a different kind of credential. Resident doors, the same situation, perhaps different hardware, different credentials, and in many cases, different communication modalities, whether it's Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, Z-Wave, offline, which I know for this audience is something that a lot of people want to talk about and hear about, and Barclay will spend a little bit of time talking about that in a bit. If you have elevators in your environment, you know how challenging those can be. We're extremely good at managing the elevator in the mix and really creating that curb to couch experience that makes it easy and a joy to be on a property at any point in time. I think the point is made here that we have to be able to manage complexity. We have to assume that not everything can be a peanut butter spread, that there will be differences, and we need to account for those in the technology as smoothly as possible. Alexandra, I think we actually have a second polling question right here.
Yes. What kind of doors or areas are you most interested in being able to control with an access control system? Lots of options here. And you can select more than one if you didn't notice that as well. So we'll keep it running. Where do you all see the most common use of RemoteLock on your end? I'm sure you're going to cover it soon, but I'm too curious.
We are, and what's interesting is the kind of hardware that we use. Obviously, depends on the opening. The common area, front door, whether that's an intercom or another type of device, leading into from the front door leading into the common area is a big area that we're handling. But more and more those resident doors and bringing the power of that connected lock to a resident door without having the often overwhelming cost of pulling wires to that door, managing it in a way that's much more cost effective, and ultimately through our platform, very flexible.
Yeah, interesting question from Carissa asking about how this can be tied into smoke detectors. I don't think I've ever thought about that before, but that just came up. So I thought maybe it might be interesting if you have looked into that at all.
We have. In fact, there's a number of different inputs and outputs that we can connect into the platform. This is, again, one of the benefits of the platform being so flexible and scalable. Definitely not a bespoke platform. We have a platform that we're building from. So when we attach a device, whether it's a smoke alarm or noise detection or lights or sound, and when we're talking about IoT, those things are all connected in very scalable and manageable ways. But smoke detection, leak detection, occupancy are all things that the platform is capable of.
Interesting. Okay, well, I've had the results up. What do you guys think?
No surprise, resident doors, a big interest of the group, as we expected it would be. And again, with the advent of smart locks, and as some of the challenges that were earlier in the life cycle of smart locks are being managed, such as battery life and whatnot, yet more and more people are looking at resident doors. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so before I transition this over to Barclay, the point that I'm trying to help everyone understand here is that we're an open platform. So any door, any credential, any lock brand, any software creates all sorts of opportunities for someone in multifamily, whether you're at new build, where you're looking at you're configuring that building from ground up, or you're in a takeover environment where, for cost reasons, you just as soon leave the hardware on the door and manage it with a more scalable software solution. We can handle that for you. As evidence, I think, if you will, of the value of the strategy and the traction that we're getting here, this is just a sample of some of the major brands we're adding to this day in and day out. It's Barclay's responsibility predominantly to help us figure out which ones are next and to manage those relationships. But this is our vote of confidence board, if you will. And I think it speaks volumes to how we're being perceived in the marketplace and the interest that people are showing in us. So at this point, I'm actually going to turn it over to Barclay to dive a little bit deeper. So go ahead, Barclay.
Yeah, no, appreciate that, Eric. I think looking at that next slide, we're going to start to kind of peel back the layers just a little bit, as what Eric described. I mean, we're using a lot of these terms of future proofing, the non-proprietary open architecture approach, obviously layered in with that ease of use and being cost effective. And so when we think about flexibility and supporting your property needs, it's always important, and what RemoteLock strives to accomplish with this, especially when you're looking at kind of the credentials, technology, and any lock lock type. And so when I talk about credentials, it really takes a look at how do you want your property managers, your maintenance, your vendors, residents, and guests to access the property. So what does that access credential look like? And used in replacing that physical key. And so RemoteLock provides options on what the best experience is for your for your property, whether that is a PIN code card, mobile phone, or even the web web interface in order to network lock and unlock things. And so it's really providing the flexibility around credential types. Looking down at the technology, there's a lot of different technologies that are supporting access devices out in the marketplace, and so there's several of these options. We can support all of these things as it relates to a wireless connected lock or a wired physical access control panel for those common doors or elevator banks or garage parking that is utilizing an electrified strike or a mag lock. And then, what has come up to be a pretty important topic is how do we operate things in a non-connected environment? And so we support protocols that allow for you to administer codes with a non-connected device. And so you've got a variety of technologies, you've got a variety of credentials, but I think the big thing here is that not all properties are created equal. And the same goes for, for what type of door or door types that you have. And so RemoteLock, through its relationships, partnerships, as Eric described, has built an agnostic platform to support those, those brands that are, most trusted in the industry as a whole. And so by looking at those things and approaching it with an open mindset, open architecture, gives us the ability to provide a solution to the variety of doors that are at your location, as well as meeting those building code requirements, thinking about deadbolts or levers, the electrified strikes, mag locks associated to physical access control, keypads and readers, as well as any of those building code requirements that may request or your need for an interconnected deadbolt or mortise type lock. And so kind of wrapping this, this slide up that you're looking at is that flexibility and the ability to really future-proof things as you think about your current needs and how, a partner such as RemoteLock can expand with you based on those, based on those needs. And so that's, kind of drilling down into the next, slide is where we really look at, kind of one of that credential paths that we talked about, the non-connected environment. So, ReadyPin is supported by some of RemoteLock's hardware partners. It is an example of a credential option. And so it's available for non-connected properties that still want to embrace the value of, of controlling access remotely. And so giving you the ability to create, issue PIN credentials without the need for the lock to be online. And so I know that this was a topic that has come up in the, in the past. And we just wanted to, kind of take you down a little bit deeper into one of those examples of the non-connected and, environment. And so, thinking about, RemoteLock and, the benefits that we bring to the table, and, and Eric has described those things as, being that centralized, dashboard to bring all of your, access control into one, central place for, for viewing. So, RemoteLock is extremely easy to use. It's scalable, future-proof, cloud-based software platform that provides a centralized approach in managing your property's access, whether it's reporting data, which for those doors that people are accessing, or really working well with others and looking at the integrations that are available. It's all about creating an improved efficiency across your portfolio or those doors that you're managing. We have all of those right features to support your needs, wrapped up into a very intuitive, easy to use, software. Thinking about kind of going down and looking at the use cases, as Eric had mentioned in regards to, a previous slide is, the way that the market has expressed what they're looking at, how they operate their property. You've got operational efficiencies, you've got risk mitigation, you've got resident experience. And so those are some of those key buckets that, that we have some examples here based on some of the use cases, to support your goals. And so staff access, being able to add and revoke access to staff members at any, at any time. So giving you that central control to be able to do that. Loss of keys, that's huge. No more, handing off keys or rekeying doors. It's a cost and a time savings, and also that improves security. So being able to do those things remotely without rolling trucks and without having somebody on site to physically, do those things, gives you that, that little bit of that time back. It creates the efficiencies at your property to be able to do other things. But, that in conjunction with, looking at access as an amenity. And so we've got, self-guided tours, contactless tours. That's a big, that's a big piece that people are embracing at the property level, to be able to remotely, interact and show someone the property and provide them access credentials for that, for that unit, without having a property manager out there on, on site, or going from one unit to the next to, to show prospected renters. Another big, big thing, it seems like it's a topic that's coming up a lot, is the flexible rental home, home sharing. So being able to take advantage of new revenue opportunities. And so around your vacant units, allowing even residents to short-term rent their units under your supervision, and being able to, glean that revenue opportunity by doing those things. We have several, customers that are leveraging this concept. A case study that we have available for, for you, that if you're interested in, in looking at, is with San Pedro Apartments out of San Jose, California. And so that's a use case where, at this particular property, they're embracing the flexible rental and home sharing concept, and they're achieving additional revenues by doing those things. And so kind of bringing access up a tier to, those additional amenities, package delivery, dog walking services, dry cleaning, drop off, and, and making it a little bit more, I guess, more services that you can offer your, your renters and tenants within your building. All right. And then, really, as I'd mentioned before, is, not all properties are created equal, and you need to be able to change and grow with, with those things. And so future-proof is, is really big, as I described in an earlier slide, is to be able to manage and control a variety of different credentials, a variety of different doors, as well as those doors being connected. And so, and in turn, in some of those, applications is having that tracking and auditing at your disposal, monitoring that, the maintenance and housekeeping schedules, things that are going on at the property, but being able to do those things remotely, which is very big. So these use cases, very high level, kind of go back to those three buckets that Eric described when operating your business, and putting a little bit of that control back into your hands and doing it more efficiently. Kind of looking at the next, the next one here is just, really, that commitment to success. And so, at RemoteLock, we're providing that ultimate flexibility. We'll work with you on, on what your needs are, whether it's managing the one door to hundreds of doors. We're designed to grow with you. And so we know that that those challenges exist at your properties. We recognize that. And we want to make sure that that you're able to, design a solution that best fits your, best fits your needs, and can grow with you as you, as you continue to move forward.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I learned a lot for sure, and we have received some really great questions already. I have some that I told people to put in the question box. So if you didn't see that comment yet, if you have a question, please put it there so I don't miss it in the chat, because we did get a lot of chit chat in there. So a question here about security. It came up 2 or 3 times. Sabrina asked, what about someone hacking your software, and how does RemoteLock address that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And obviously with, with cloud-based based solutions that that are being adopted today, we rely on the main security protocols with our, with our providers. We are also penetration tested on an annual basis. We work with, with major retailers, Fortune 50 retailers that do penetration testing on our application annually, in order for us to make sure that we're maintaining the highest level of security within our cloud-based application in order to, in order to operate. And so security is a concern of ours. We are constantly testing any vulnerabilities and making sure that we partner with the right people in hosting our application to prevent any of those intrusions that might concern our customers. Eric, I don't know if there's anything in addition that you want to provide context on that.
No, I think you caught the high points, but we're always happy. We've got a team of developers and engineers that are always happy to talk about security and the architecture of the system. We do work for the US government and other big entities that care an awful lot about that. So I can assure you, it's unlikely you'll ask us a question that that team hasn't been asked before.
Absolutely. The idea here for those of you on the call is to make your locks more secure. And this is definitely better than an analog lock, which can easily be replicated. At least that's what I've seen a lot of news stories cover lately is, landlord didn't rekey, someone came in and a crime occurred or something of that sort. So you definitely want to make sure that you're rekeying and that you're not, letting everybody just rekey a key, because that's a lot easier to do than hacking a software. So coming in with AirBNB, talking here with Rose. She says she has a PIN code Schleg lock and would like to change the code with each new guest. Does this approach work with RemoteLock?
Yeah, that is fundamental to where we started. We started with vacation rental. We were one of Airbnb's first premier marketplace partners, if not the first. And so the integration that we have with Airbnb allows you to leave the changing of the code, if you want to, entirely to the Airbnb software itself. When a new guest is booked, a timestamp is created for when they need access and when that access should expire. And it's all done very elegantly and without you needing to do anything other than be aware that it's happened. You'll get a notification through the system, as will the guest, of the code, the time that it'll be valid, and when it will be expired. So we're purpose made for exactly that use case, Rose.
Wonderful. And I did get a question from Carissa asking if there's any way to demo the back end. I don't know if you have access to it, or you could pull it up while we're answering questions, but that might be helpful if you do. If not, it's okay. But I did get another question as well from Judy. Judy is asking, she only has one door to control. She's just a new landlord, it sounds like. How would it be cost effective for me to use your system?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And the thing is that we do a lot of that for, for properties, kind of the back of the house doors, whether it's, maintenance or storage or, or IT closets and things like that. And so our licensing fee is based on a per door type, type approach. And so, so that allows for you to just pay for, for the doors that you're controlling. So it's very economical to, to manage one door. And obviously there's, there's volume or pricing concessions at scale that supports as you, as you grow, but it makes it very cost effective when you need to manage one door.
Absolutely. Yes. And that's something that I really love about RemoteLock, because we have members with all kinds of rentals and all sizes. Merland here just asked, I am getting ready to launch a 350 unit mid-rise apartment and hotel in North Carolina. And it's a development. When is the right time to connect with RemoteLock to put that security in place?
Yeah, the earlier the better. Let's, as I said, we've got a crack staff of both hardware and software people that really enjoy solving those problems. The sooner we're brought into a situation to help you, or an opportunity to help you really architect and understand that, the better. We work with over 100 different locks right now that we can right fit for your situation the hardware that's involved, and then show you how to use the software to affect the kind of controls and design the system that best works to meet your needs.
Yeah, and I think that's the most ideal situation, is having a development, being able to choose, especially in this environment right now, all the different technology that's available. That's very exciting to be able to do it right the first time instead of retrofitting and going back. So another question that came up quite a few times, I'm sure you all get it a lot, is that what if Wi-Fi goes down? What if batteries go out? So these sort of backup situations, how does that affect the function of RemoteLock?
Yeah, no, those are two those are two great questions, and we get them a lot. I'm gonna touch on the battery piece of it. So if there is a power outage, the majority of the standalone locks are battery operated, so they are not impacted with a power outage. Any of the hardwired physical access control, they have backup batteries that support those things with power outages. So it takes those things into consideration. Number one. Number two, our system also has a notification engine that also not responds, but will notify you when power is when power is low or when power is out. But we look at the battery life scenario, and we can provide notifications to maintenance or to a property manager when those things hit kind of a point where we feel like it's beneficial to change or update those those batteries. So we have the notification side of things. We've got the backup battery in case of a power outage on the physical access control, and then on the individual standalone, that is those are operated traditionally by 4 AA batteries. So that's on the power side of of things. On the Wi-Fi connected side of of things, is that any of the access devices that are connected to Wi-Fi, when the credential or access schedule, any of those things are pushed to the lock, and so the lock has has that information within its within its memory. Then then it'll respond to the credential that's been issued to it. It'll respond to any of the schedules for access users that's been given to it. Any of those things is still managed at the lock level. So if it disconnects from the Wi-Fi, then the only thing that happens is any of those immediate network commands that you give to it, or if you need to issue a new a new credential to that lock, during the time that it's not connected, it will not receive those things. But anything that it has received, it'll maintain and it'll respond and work as as intended. And that's where we also work with with our properties on what are some of the backup things that you need to look at. Should we should we enroll some backup credentials to have at our disposal? So it's almost like these worst case scenarios. So you want to prepare yourself for worst case scenarios, but you can take comfort in knowing that when stuff is sent to the lock, then it maintains and it'll operate on its own without the need for it to be connected to the internet. The only thing that occurs is that, or that you wouldn't have at your disposal, is those things that you want to push to the lock or any network commands while it's disconnected. But also the locks that are, that are leveraging Wi-Fi or a connected kind of approach, they will, they will, when the Wi-Fi is back up, they will connect themselves back to that internet. Eric,
that's great.
Yeah, anything else on that topic?
I think you got it.
Well
Great.
covered. Yes. Two similar questions from Howard and Celia. Are there any sort of legal issues with tracking or monitoring the movements of your tenants or visitors going in and out of an apartment building?
Yeah, it's a great question. And obviously we're not attorneys. And with increasing privacy laws, whether it's GDPR overseas or some of the privacy acts that are gaining traction here in the States, our system is not designed to be specific about who it's tracking. Rather, we know when and how credentials are moving through a property. Great case example, a big multifamily building here in Denver. Noticed that access to the weight room was happening not down the hallways they expected to, but from a back area, which created a question is this a concern? And are we having unauthorized people come into the weight room? But what they actually determined was, hey, it's much more convenient for this part of the building to get to the weight room this way. So let's put new lighting in this hall. Let's create a safer ingress and egress for that facility through this path that the credentials showed were being taken. We do very standard things about, if a non-valid code is being used multiple times, or non-valid credentials being presented multiple times, it looks like unauthorized access, an attempt to enter type notifications. We see that as well. But tracking Eric Owen through the building, I don't know that anybody that we're currently working with is using the software in exactly that way. And I would be the first to say, before you do something like that, I would make sure you talk to your legal counsel about that.
Perfect. So another question, going back to the Wi-Fi battery question that Barclay, you answered so well. Jeffrey is actually asking if it can also use cell or Bluetooth for communications.
Yeah, no, great question. And that's where, the flexibility of our application comes into play here, is that we can support a variety of, of connection types, because we're non-proprietary. We are not putting in additional equipment in order for, these name brand locks, if you will, to connect to the internet. And so, so if it's a Z-Wave hub that's necessary, then we can, administer that at the property. If there needs to be cellular, cellular backup, we have ways to be able to support that cellular backup, backup approach. And so, because we're lock agnostic, we're somewhat technology agnostic, that our application can mix and match those things, and also support those things in order for you to, leverage our platform to administer, access credentials, schedules, device schedules, and things of that nature. So yes, we're able to support those things, if that's necessary out of the property.
That's great. And I really think this just comes down to the flexibility. I see that, I don't know if it was Eric or Barclay answered John's question about the beach environment on these lock systems and how that could maybe be an issue, but there are locks out there that are made for a beachside environment. Likewise, Stacy is asking, how does it work for multiple locations and multiple properties in different locations and states? So it sounds like in some cases, if you have a property on a beach and you have one in the city and you have a multi-unit and you have a single family, all those are going to maybe have slightly different setups for those properties, but all managed under one remote lock system. That's my understanding of it, at least. So if you want to expand on that, certainly feel free. I think I've seen several questions like that. What about this? What about my door?
Alexandra, you're hired.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the environment, the concerns around environment are predominantly hardware related. The software functions exactly the same, irrespective of where you are. In terms of multiple locations, we're able to name locations, name doors, keep track of individual buildings, if you will. So as a manager of maybe 3 buildings or 30 buildings at once, you can always look into a single building and see what is happening. You can manage discreetly from there, establish different roles, different permissions around that building, should the use case vary slightly. So it's highly configurable in that regard, and really intended to be, again, that tool for somebody who says, I don't have the time to drive across town to look at something. I don't have time to run up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I need to be focusing on higher value creating activities as a manager of the property, whether that's acquisition or retention or positioning or whatever it happens to be. The software is intentionally designed to give you the time back to do those kinds of things by taking the more mundane, even if it's complex, off your plate and handling it in a very trustworthy and repeatable way.
Yes, I know many of you on the call are DIY landlords, but you don't have to do it all yourself. We do have some tools to help with some of these things. Another question that came up a couple times is, and from Merland again, the one with the 350 unit building, but I saw somebody else ask as well, if you have a secured gated community, do you provide security for that gated entrance of the community as well?
Yeah, so we can manage that that gate. Yes, we can. So we we have examples with customers right now where we're managing garage entry points as well as parking arm or gate, kind of that gate approach. And so so we're able to hook into that existing gate operator, if you will, and our control panel can do an endpoint or an output into that to actuate the arm or open up the gate. And so we're able to interface in that, in that manner. But yeah, we most certainly can.
Great. Also, does the app support alarm systems for the individual apartments?
The alarm integrations today are on our roadmap. We don't have, we have indicators or IO that we can use to connect to an alarm system, but there's not full-blown integration yet. There will be shortly.
Okay, great. I also saw several questions more getting into the nitty-gritty of how it works. And like, you could give an example of a scenario if you are a tenant in an apartment and you have a guest coming to visit you. How do you get that guest into the property, or how do you allow them to enter? Does the tenant have that ability to allow a guest to enter his property?
Yes, that's, from that standpoint, there is a resident or entry app that we can, that we use to support that feature, or that function. So it gives the resident the ability to, to initiate a guest code for someone, or even do kind of an unlock the gate, if you will. So it's really defined by what, what the property manager's kind of policies are around that. And we allow them to, to say, okay, my resident can, only issue one guest code at a time, or two with a limited period, and only be able to maybe unlock a door for a guest, or, a specific door. And so we try to, we work with the property managers to, on what their policy might be around the resident kind of ability to, to provide access. But that's through a entry app type approach.
Okay, great. Also, if somebody wanted to test out your service or take a look at it, can they just download the app or do something to like see what it looks like on the back end?
Yeah, it's a great question. And anytime anybody wants to touch and play with this, I love it, because that's when people get really excited about it. So I think the first thing to start with is get in touch with us directly. Let's talk about what the use case is. We can certainly take you through demos. And the only reason we didn't do a demo today, frankly, Alexander, is because it can go a million directions. People have all sorts of different ideas about what they want to see. And we probably would have met somebody's specific question and left a bunch of people uninterested at that point in time. So we are, we often do a limited trial period for people, including sending out hardware in the right situations. So let's, like I said, start with calling us, and depending on the use case, depending on the situation, we'd be more than happy to give you a test drive, if you will.
Wonderful. And I also got some questions about pricing. Just to clarify, it is per door, right?
Correct.
And then discounts for more doors if you have more. Okay, great. And then also, Basuki here, this might help us kind of wrap up a lot of what we've talked about. She's asking for a small apartment, if it's a fourplex with 4 doors. What's the benefit of your system compared to just buying a regular lock from Home Depot if they have very low turnover?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think that it's all around what you're trying to accomplish with those 4 doors within your fourplex. We went back to, the cost of rekeying, or, or providing access to maintenance and a little bit of that experience from from a resident standpoint. And so, taking those things into consideration and being able to remotely manage those things and maybe give a little bit of that power back to the resident. It's, you're able to reduce those costs in a couple of different areas. And so think about it this way. It almost pays for itself if I have to roll a truck one time to replace a lock from a management perspective, or if I need to let maintenance in or a vendor in at a certain time. Do I need to be out at the property to let that person in? So we're saving a little bit of that time and that exchange of physical keys. If that physical key gets lost, then what I'm having to do is I'm having to replace 4 times 4 locks in order to update those cores. And so right there, just if that happens once, you're paying for probably several years of of service and and giving a little bit of that kind of that back to the property. But Eric, I don't know if there's something additional on on that particular use case or not use case, but kind of question there.
I think we got it.
Okay, wonderful. Jeffrey asked, does RemoteLock use Z-Wave protocol? I don't know what that is to communicate with door locks.
So yes, we do. But we also use Wi-Fi, which is direct to a Wi-Fi infrastructure, Z-Wave hubs. We also use Yale Access, which is a BLE lock to a little Wi-Fi gateway that connects to the internet. We also use algorithmic functionality via the ReadyPin credential option, which is an offline approach. And so I think the point maybe here is that it's not a particular protocol that we have to have deployed at a property. It's it's what protocol might make sense for the property manager from a cost effectiveness and what your property can support. And so that's where that flexibility really comes into into play, is giving you the options and not having to incur the price of putting a Z-Wave backbone into your building, or putting a Wi-Fi network into your building. It just depends on how you want to leverage the system. So we're non-proprietary, so we don't need a proprietary hub to be installed at the property in order for our solution to work. And that's where that's where we start to separate ourselves from others that are that are working with the marketplace as a whole, which traditionally has proprietary gateways and hubs that are necessary to be installed, managed, and maintained in order for them to achieve this this type of approach, or achieve electronic access control at the property.
Yeah, and if I could add to that just briefly, and keep in mind, we can mix all of it. So if we're Wi-Fi in the common areas at the front door, and we're ReadyPin at the unit door, whatever, it's all okay. It all works together beautifully, seamlessly, and efficiently on our platform.
Yes, Jeffrey in the audience says, sounds like a lot of flexibility with RemoteLock. I agree completely. That's why I see why it's hard now to do a demo, because it's so flexible that it's hard to show what it could be like for you, because your situation is probably different than someone else's. So question from Orland, what happens if someone forgets their code to enter? What's that process look like?
Yeah, no, great question. So if they forget their code, it's a little bit of the same way if I lost my lost my key, if you will. So from a code perspective, then whatever policies or procedures that you have at the property, if they're reaching out to maintenance, and at that particular point, it makes it very easy, instead of rolling a truck or having to to meet this individual out there, is to be able to have a reference, make sure that you're talking to the right right individual. Number one. Number two is to provide them a temporary code to to get into their unit or to the door, and then have them update with you what a more permanent code would be, or be able to reference what that code is. So depending on kind of the profile of the individual that you're talking to, they can, you know what I mean, they can issue a temporary, you know what I mean, code for you, or provide you a backup code, if you will, in order to gain access. And then, you know what I mean, and then whatever the policies are, procedures are out at the property, you may require them to, you know what I mean, to change their code and, you know what I mean, and do those updates. And so if somebody forgets their PIN, then there's ways in order for, you know what I mean, for you to establish that. One of the things that we've, you know what I mean, that we found with other property managers, especially in the short-term environment, is that they'll just resend the email or the, you know what I mean, or the notification that their code was originally created on. And so with our platform, we can do an email notification to that individual, and, you know, that says, here's your code for these, you know what I mean, for these doors. And so it could be just a function of resending that. And so, you know, they would just need to have access to their same email account that, you know what I mean, that those original messages were sent, and they could view it that, you know what I mean, that way. So there's a couple of different ways of going about it.
Okay, great. I also want to bring up something I saw, actually, Kim from RemoteLock, she answered in the chat regarding Airbnb. I think this is interesting because I don't know if you brought it up or not, but you have direct integrations with Airbnb and other booking sites to make it even easier to automate code changes between guests. So that's pretty amazing. I know some of you on the call do Airbnb. So it sounds like if you're doing it, you could do it through there even. So that's pretty cool. Let's see if I got any additional questions. Oh, there was two similar questions. One from Celia asking, like, can you do an in-person sort of consult and view the site and see like what you would recommend? And then John is asking also, like, where are you headquartered if I have an issue? Who do I deal with in my area? So sort of like, do you offer local support is more the question. Yeah.
Great question. And so, John, we're headquartered in Denver, Colorado. Like I said at the beginning, please stop by and say hello if you're ever in town. It's kind of a fun building to walk through, and a lot of excited people talking about access control 24/7. But so how we deal with repair issues, we, as you would expect, being a software company, we don't have a physical footprint everywhere. So we have authorized relationships in the marketplace for installation and support. I don't know where you are specifically, but we can cover pretty much anywhere at this point. As I said, they're authorized. They understand how to handle the hardware. If it's a hardware situation, we go through a triage when and if an issue is identified to determine whether it's software in nature initially, or if it is in fact something that requires a physical visit. But it would be that, in all likelihood, would be the same entity that did the installation of the hardware for you and the configuration or the commissioning of the locks to whatever network you were using. That would be the person you would call for any sort of service issue that came up. But we can talk through your specific locality, your specific situation if you'd like.
Okay, great. There are just two more questions here. I think we've covered almost all of them, which is amazing because there were so many. From Merlan, does the cloud offer warning indicators?
Warning indicators in terms of status of lock, connectivity. Yes, yes is the bottom the answer to that. It just depends what specifically you might be thinking of. Best way to handle that again is give us a call. Let's go through a demo. We can show you the kind of warning status information that we collect. I mentioned it earlier from a security perspective. The audit trail that we create, the log that we create, we automatically capture and retain a year's worth of information, when doors are opened, by what credential number, et cetera. That's all part of it. So depending on what you mean by warnings or statuses, or we have a lot of functionality and capability in that particular area.
So I want to finish with one last question from Lloyd. I know we've covered this a lot, but I think it's a good wrap-up question, which is, what would you say are the main benefits of using RemoteLock over a different type of smart access control system?
Barkley, knock it out of the park.
Yeah, no, I think it's, it was, it's really It's really what we talked about, talked about today. So it's that, it's that easy to use cloud-based application that is extremely flexible to handle your needs, whether it be with one door or, or multiple doors across multiple properties. The ability to grow with you and not, put you into a proprietary situation where you have to have, either certain devices that that we install in order to interact with your property or dealing with the access, and being able to future-proof your capital expense. And so, we know what kind of what your property needs today is going to change versus what what it may need in the future. And so you want to be able to partner with somebody that can grow with you, and to be able to, support you with those, with those changes. And like I said, again, it's, whether it's a single door that you're managing on the back of the house within your property, to then wanting to roll it out to all of your unit doors. We have that flexibility, and we can, and we can do it in a cost-effective way, and we can partner with you based on the changes that you might have coming down the pipe in the future. And so that's, that's really, what we're built upon is, that agnostic platform that that allows you to, to be flexible at property number one versus maybe what your needs are for property number, number two. And that's what it makes, that's some of the differences between us and other people within this, within this industry that we're doing a little bit differently. Eric, I don't know if you want to chime in on that.
No, I think you definitely got it. Thank you.
Great, great. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time to answer all these questions and going over your system. I really hope that it's been helpful for those of you on the call. Just a reminder, tomorrow I am sending you the full recording and the PowerPoint slides, as well as how to get in touch with RemoteLock if you do want to learn more about how to get set up with them. Also, there is an exit survey as you leave. Please take it. I do read all your comments and suggestions, and it really helps to make these webinars better. Barclay and Eric, again, thank you so much for coming on. It was wonderful meeting you both. I hope to have you again sometime. So if for all of you left on the call, have a wonderful day. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.